friends. I'm your host, Erin Port, and welcome to the Simple Purposeful Living podcast. Life can be overwhelming and busy, so once a week, I invite you to join me, and together we will make simple tweaks to uncomplicate the hard parts of our life so we can spend more time doing what we love. Every few months, I host a casual Ask Me Anything session where we get to workshop little tweaks to make your life feel simpler and lighter. It's a space where I share some behind the scenes of my own life, answer your questions, and brainstorm real world ways to make day-to-day life a little bit easier. So today, you've submitted 8 questions. We're going to dive in and see what you asked. You could ask me anything. Number 1. I really need help with seasonal organization. It feels so daunting. Help. Okay, I love this. But seasonal decorating doesn't have to feel like this giant project. For some of you, you're like, I love seasonal decorating. I want to decorate my whole house. I want it to be festive and beautiful. And for some of us, it feels like this overwhelming task where you want to create this homey haven of a space that feels like you, but you're like, oh my gosh, it's too much. So let me share a few tips. Some of them are even from you because I shared some fun things that I do for decorating that are a bit unhinged, and you guys shared some tips too. So number 1, here's where I would start. Don't try to organize all of your decor from Christmas to Easter to fall to the regular decor. Organize as you decorate. So when I open a bin for fall, I have one bin for fall and one bin for Halloween. But when I open that bin for fall, if I see something that I didn't use last year, or it's broken, or it's old, I either donate it or toss it. Here's the thing. When we just keep things and they put them back in the bin, it just defers that decision to later. So if you're organizing as you decorate, it just simplifies your life, right? So take what you want, put it out. Take what you don't want, put it in a decluttering bin, and get rid of it when it gets full. And then, when you're putting stuff away, I think one of the easiest things to do is just put a sticky note on the outside of that bin and say what's in that bin. Like it could be fall decor. I keep all of my fall books that I read to the kids in my decor bin because they feel fresh and new. So I just put that on there. Another tip from one of our community members, and I love this and I subscribe to it too, is to decorate first, then shop. So always what I like to do, and this goes for even clothing, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but go through your closet, go through your decor before you go and buy something new. I know it's so enticing to go to a gift shop or a Hobby Lobby or wherever you're at and you find these new cute things. But what I often find that has happened to me before is I repeat buying the same thing because I like it so much. And I'm like, oh, I actually have a similar version already in my tote. So I always recommend go and see what you have, pull it all out. It might be that your wreath is getting a little old and tattered. That was me in the spring. Like my boxwood wreath was not looking so good anymore. The birds had gotten a hold of it. So I went ahead and replaced that. But I knew going in what I had so that I could buy with intention. So decorate first before you buy. That will help eliminate having to organize more stuff that you don't need. Another friend in our audience said she has high anxiety when it comes to decorating, even OCD. But she said what has helped her with that is one year she took pictures of her decor. And each year she just can pull up those pictures and see how she decorated. So it's easier for her to decorate. So if you fall into that category, I think that's a great tip. And then leave yourself notes. I love doing this. I even love buying the item, but if you run out of lights or wish you had more hooks, jot it down on a sticky note so that you know what to buy next season. Or better yet, make an Amazon order, put it in your grocery order, and put it in the bin so you're all ready to hit the ground running for the next season you're decorating. Okay, hopefully those tips help you decorate with more ease. And remember, as little or as much as you want, it doesn't have to be super elaborate to be festive. I just do simple little touches. And I always take out, like if I'm doing fall foliage, like I have some fall picks, I just take out my green picks and replace them with my fall. So I'm not adding to, I'm replacing, which I do think helps cut down on the clutter and the visual noise as well. Okay, number 2, how granular do you get when meal planning for the week? Do you plan the snacks for the kids that they'll take each day? What's it like compiling a list without the anxiety of missing something? Okay, so number one, do I plan for breakfast and lunch and snacks? I get that question all the time. And we treated those meals like a cheesecake factory, or we do not treat it like a Cheesecake Factory menu. If you've ever been to Cheesecake Factory, it's like a 40-page menu. Way too many options. Instead, I think of it as just a small little menu, maybe 3 to 4 items where the kids can rotate throughout the week. And that's kind of how we do breakfast, lunch, and snacks. So I get 3 or 4 different kinds of snacks and I put them in the bin and they can take whatever they want for the week. And I rotate that and I'll ask my kids, like, what do you want for the week? And we'll do the same with breakfast. We oftentimes will get some sort of yogurt. It varies between smoothie type yogurt drinks to Greek yogurt. The kids love to do some sort of bread. So sometimes we'll do bagels. Sometimes we'll do brioche chocolate chip bread. Sometimes we'll do sourdough bread. Again, I ask the kids and I put it on the meal plan. So they have 3 or 4 options that they can pick from. In the morning, of course, we always have eggs available to them, frozen breakfast sausage, but just keeping the options limited. Same with what they take for lunch. I'll say to them, like, what kinds of things do you want for lunch this week? Usually they're really into charcuterie, but sometimes they'll be like, no, I want sandwiches this week. That's great. Especially the older they get, the more that you can invite them into the process and ask them what they want. That's great. My snack hack with Costco. I normally at the beginning of the month, I'm off. Somehow I got off with Costco, but at the beginning of the month, I'll go and I'll buy a bunch of snacks. We have 4 plastic baskets, and I have the kids, again, I've delegated this task. I have the kids divide out the snacks evenly amongst the 4 baskets, and then each week I just put a new snack basket where they can reach it. I keep the other ones up high and out of sight, out of mind, so that our snacks last all month long. But again, I ask them when I go to Costco, or sometimes like they'll come with me and I'll say, what's a snack that you want this month? They each pick one and then they have those at their disposal. So that's kind of how I do snacks. I think simpler the better when it comes to those meals. Okay. When it comes to trying not to forget anything at the store, this is why I developed the Simple Purposeful Living Meal Planner, why there's a perforated grocery list, and why it's spiral bound. So, number one, I have it spiral bound so you can look back on old meal plans so you're not thinking, what's for dinner this week every single week. You can look back and say, what have we had in the past? Also, in the back of the meal planner, there are 70 meal ideas. So if you get stuck in a what's for dinner rut, go look at that as well. And then I put it down on the list, right? And I have our meal planner sitting right out on the counter on a little cookbook stand. I love it because my family is now trained that if they want me to remember something at the grocery store, it needs to be written on the meal plan because I take that meal planner with me to the grocery store. I take that grocery list with me. So if we run out of toilet paper or we run out of garbage can liners or we run out of the cereal that they like or whatever it is, I tell them you have to write it down because if it's not on the list, I will not remember it. That cuts down a ton on forgetting things at the grocery store. And we've gotten in the habit. Now, it takes time to get in the habit. Of course, I forget things at the grocery store. If it's not imperative, we will not stop. Like if it's like a preference thing where it's like, oh, shoot, I really wish you had gotten me that snack. Okay, we'll write it down on the meal plan next week. Does I forget to get the pesto and we're having pesto pasta for dinner happen? Absolutely. And then that's where we give ourselves grace, right? Like ditch the perfectionism. So often we want to live in this black and white perfect state of mind. And of course, none of us is perfect. We all forget things at the grocery store. And that's where there's grace. But this really does help. And I always tell people, even if meal planning helps you 80%, that dramatically cuts down on the chaos in your life. So don't focus on perfection and like, I'm never going to forget something at the store. But is it going to reduce it greatly? Absolutely. Okay. And I think just batching the planning, spending 15 to 20 minutes, writing down those meals, writing down that grocery list, in addition to what you already have on your running list. Because as soon as you go to the store, I rip out last week's grocery list and that reveals next week. So we can just be adding to it all week long. And if you have not gotten our meal planner, you can use code podcast for 10% off your order. And I will link the meal planner in the show notes. It has been a game changer for thousands of families. One last thing when it comes to meal planning that I want to give you some grace in is I talk about plan B meals. And it's not a matter of if, but when something goes awry. You forget to pull the chicken out of the freezer, you have something come up and no longer can make what you thought you could make for dinner, right? We have 4 kids. That happens more often than I'd like. But that's when I always say having a plan B meal on standby is great. So for us, that's usually frozen pizza. I always have some macaroni and cheese in the pantry. If you know, you know. The internet gets mad about that, but it works. Even just breakfast for dinner, having pancake mix, whatever it is. A few easy plan B meals that people love that you can whip up in a hurry is a great option because, again, it's not a matter of if, but when your plans go right, and having a plan B meal will help. Okay, switching gears. How do you find a therapist you know, like, and trust? I've tried a couple in the past that were not a good fit, and it was awkward to get out. Okay, so I love this question. So many of us have been there. We try therapy, the fit is off, and then we feel stuck or guilty about leaving, or we just give up on therapy as a whole. Part of my story is that I got therapy when I was in high school for an eating disorder. Back then, eating disorders were not as prevalently uh, served by therapy. And so I ended up with a guy who was like in his mid 60s and who really had no business serving me with my eating disorder. And so for a long time, it kind of gave me a bad taste in my mouth about therapy. But I knew that I needed to try again. So, number one, I would recommend um, research consistently shows that therapeutic alliance, basically how safe and connected you feel with your therapist, is the number one predictor of success, even more than the type of therapy used. So, if something feels off, it's okay to trust that. But I would also say that it takes a couple of weeks for you to feel comfortable. I would say, and I love my therapist now, and I would say this to her face, that the first few times I went, I wasn't sure that she was the right fit. My husband will even say, remember when you would say, I don't think that she's the right fit. Partially, that was because she was helping me and it was really uncomfortable. I didn't like being faced with my own stuff. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, you're divulging a lot of very personal stuff. And so it takes time to build trust and build evidence in your mind that what they're saying to you is going to be helpful to you, if that makes sense. So sometimes we just have to give ourselves a couple of times to get comfortable and then reassess. But you could also try a good fit call, right? Where you're testing out them, they're testing out you. And again, I think we need to normalize the breakup. It's okay to say, you know what? I don't know that this is the right fit for me. And therapists expect that. There's no hurt feelings. Their goal is to help you with your mental health, and your goal is to help you with your mental health. And this is part of advocating for yourself. So I never want you to feel guilty if it's not a right fit. And I don't want you to feel like it was a failure, right? It's all information to help you find where you want to go. But my number one recommendation is to ask your friends. If you feel uncomfortable saying like, hey, do you go to therapy? Even asking somebody that you know locally, just putting some feelers out, asking around. Maybe you know a therapist, but you don't want to see them. Like, do you recommend anybody? You'd be surprised. I found my therapist through word of mouth recommendation, and I oftentimes will give her name to other people, as well as a few other people that I know based on their schedule, since my therapist only sees people on Friday. But my caveat to all of that is if you feel like you need to go to therapy or you could benefit from therapy, go. I knew I needed to go for about 5 years, and other people going encouraged me to finally make the choice to go. So if you are going to therapy, don't be ashamed of that. Other people can borrow courage from you going. And that's why I always share my story every month when I go, because I hope that by me sharing, other people will be inspired to go as well and receive the help that they need. Okay, number four. What is your routine for writing in your gratitude journal? I've tried several times but can't keep it going. I love this. I love the honesty of this. We've all tried to get into a good habit and it just doesn't work. So, number one, I think it's important to know your why. Why are you writing in your gratitude journal? Research shows that when we're understanding why we do something, we're way more consistent than if we didn't. So maybe your why is feeling calmer before you go to bed, or maybe it's starting your day with hope so that you can focus on the things that you see, right? Because we know the red car theory. I've talked about that before on the podcast, where you buy a red car and suddenly you're like, wow, does everybody own a red car? I never saw all these before. We see what we look for. And so gratitude helps me to see what I'm looking for in my day to day. So maybe that's your why. Maybe it's even, I'm wanting to figure out what makes me happy. And my gratitude journal is showing me that's my roadmap to show me what does actually make me happy. I shared on social media about a week ago that my gratitude journal is more than just giving thanks and like helping me remember. It also is showing me what daily activities actually bring me joy. Uh, Dinner with my kids, a car ride where I can chat with my daughter for 10 minutes, a walk outside, reading before bed. All of these things actually, not only am I grateful for them, they're little breadcrumbs to show me what actually brings me joy. And so that's one of the reasons I like to do it because it reminds me of what actually matters to me in my life. We can, scroll social media and do all these things, but do they bring us joy and happiness the way that the things I write in my gratitude journal do? So, knowing your why. Number two, anchor it to something you're already doing. This is called habit stacking. So, if there's something you're already doing, like drinking your morning coffee or brushing your teeth before bed, pairing it with that will help you be more successful. And also leave it out on the counter. I'm a huge proponent of no clutter on the counters, except if it has a purpose. So, I wasn't using my bioretinol. I'd gotten out of the habit because it was in a drawer. So I put it back on my counter next to my face wash so I remember to use it at night. Visual reminders are key to helping us remember to do something. So it could be as simple as putting your gratitude journal next to your coffee maker, and then you'll be more likely to do it. Another thing I want to encourage you with is to keep it simple, sweetheart. I talk about KISS all the time, but you don't need a full page in your gratitude journal every day. Honestly, writing 1 to 3 things a few times a week can boost happiness. So lower the pressure and remember that it's okay if it's really simple. And one last caveat, and all of these tips apply to more than just the gratitude journal, but remember that perfection and consistency are not the same thing. I think it also goes back to that question about the meal planning where it said, oh my goodness, what if I forget something at the store, right? We have this tendency to want to be perfect at everything we do. And I say it all the time, some is better than none. Perfection is never missing a day. Consistency means coming back to it again and again. And I think it's important that we give ourselves some self-compassion and be gentle with ourselves. Even if you miss a day, going back to it because you know why it matters is so important. And that consistency is far better than being perfect at something. So show a little self-compassion in whatever you're doing in any habit formation. And that consistency will flow much easier because we're being compassionate with ourselves and not being so hard on ourselves. How do you talk to your kids about the tough events in the world, especially elementary aged kids? Whew. This is one of those questions I wish we didn't have to answer. But the truth is, our kids are seeing and hearing things, whether it's from friends at school, watching the news, or even just overhearing your conversations. When I have hard things, I always pepper it with humor. But I always laugh. This is the humor to kind of offset the toughness of this conversation. That's why I told you that. But I always say my kids have never listened more carefully than when I'm talking to their dad about something they shouldn't be hearing. Or they're not part of the conversation. Then they listen very carefully. Just my kids, probably not. But here's how I approach it. I think it goes back to when I was teaching in the classroom. But keeping it simple. We don't have to explain every detail. To our kids. We don't have to fill in all of the information. They don't have to fill in all the gaps. But usually what happens is if we don't talk about it with our kids, they will fill in the gaps themselves and often with scarier things than what is reality. Although a lot of reality is scary, but I share these facts in a way that they can understand. So, yes, there was a shooting. Second, I validate their feelings. Emotion coaching research shows that naming a feeling actually helps kids regulate it. This has been really helpful as I walk through my own therapy journey is naming my emotions, not shaming my emotions, but naming them and being curious about them. Why am I feeling anxious? Why am I feeling scared? And helping our kids name those emotions when they're younger is going to help them when they're older be able to name them independently. So, that does sound scary, doesn't it? Before I explain anything, or, oh, that is nerve-wracking. This morning, Quincy was nervous about his standardized testing. And, I say to him, that does sound nerve-wracking, doesn't it? And so just naming the emotion, kids are really good about correcting you if you're wrong. I've talked about this on past podcasts, but if you say the man with the green hat and Curious George, they'd be like, no, mom, it's the man with the yellow hat. And if you don't believe me, try it. It works. But I found that when I do this with my kids, like, oh, that sounds like it's maybe a little nerve-wracking. They'll say, no, no. Or you might say, oh, that seems a little scary. No, oh, that seems a little bit exciting. Yeah. Yeah, it is. That's the butterflies I'm feeling. More, I'm excited. Okay. So helping them name the emotion. So here's an example because I think examples are really helpful. But if my 8-year-old overhears news about a big storm, right? Because kids can get really nervous about weather. Mom, are we going to be okay? I might say something like, that was a really big storm, wasn't it? It sounds scary when we hear things like that, but we are safe where we live right now. The people there are getting help from emergency workers and neighbors. Helpers always show up in times like this. How are you feeling about what you saw? So we're naming the emotion, we're giving them the information that we're safe and that the people that are in need are getting the help that they need. So hopefully that kind of helps. But that conversation, it validates, like I said, their fear, clears up any information that they might be thinking about in their mind, and makes space for them to be able to process. Sometimes they just need to know we're there to keep them safe, right? Like, and that's hard too as parents because we feel like we can't always be there. But if I don't have all the answers, which happens a lot, I tell them, I don't know, but we can figure this out together. And that builds trust and shows them that they don't have to carry it alone. And boy, golly, gee whiz, I sometimes need to know that I don't have to carry it alone, even as an adult. Okay, so another person wrote in, I have a teenager who's super independent and busy, but I'd love to show them intentionally ways I care about them. What are some ideas or tiny tweaks you have? Okay, so number one, we sell those happy notes in our shop and they come in a 2-pack. I love giving them a sticky note on a mirror or a lunch bag or in their agenda, especially if they have like a big test or maybe there's a big game coming up, something where they just need a little extra encouragement. Those little notes matter. And I will tell you, I know that they matter because I've been doing it for my kids for years. And now my kids do it for me. So when I was recording my book last week, my daughter left me a sticky note in my purse with one of her favorite Bible verses and a little note that said, Mom, I'm thinking about you today. I love you so much. You're going to do a great job. And I love that. Those little notes actually matter, especially if your kid's a word of affirmation person. But I think all people, I always tell my kids when we do really hard things, the thing that we need the most is somebody to come alongside us and say, you can do this, right? It's like when you're running a 400 in the final stretch, if you've ever run a 400, those people in the stands cheering those kids on, it never fails. I am always impressed. Those kids just get like a lightning bolt in them and they just finish strong. It's those cheers, right? So, leaving a little note. I also, teenagers especially, they love snacks. In case you didn't know it, they love snacks. And so even just like sometimes I'll get something like my daughter really likes those probiotic sodas. So picking up one if I see one at the store and I'm like, oh, she would love to try that one. Or my son, getting him a little snack that he really likes. I just think those little things that make them think, oh, mom thought of me today, really do matter. And it doesn't have to be a lot or often, just whenever you think. Somebody did say that they Venmo their daughter or son for a drink to surprise them, that they could pick that up on their own. Just like, hey, I wanted to cheer you on. Here's a little Venmo to pick up something today. Again, anything that we would enjoy as adults, our teens would enjoy. Like if somebody did that for me, I would love that. And just a reminder too that 2-minute check-ins, even asking them what was good about your day, is so helpful. And I love the question, what was good about your day? Because it frames it from a perspective of positivity. And we oftentimes share what didn't go well, but we don't always share what does go well. So just framing it from that perspective. I love being intentional in car rides and letting my kids be the DJ. So letting them pick the songs. I learn a lot about the kids. I learn what their interests are. Even a mini adventure, like a late night dessert run. My daughter loves to go with my husband to Ace Hardware. So anytime he goes, he's like, hey, do you want to come along? Spontaneous coffee date. Again, it doesn't have to be long or elaborate. Those little moments really do add up. Another thing that my son and husband love to do is they love to send memes and videos to each other. And so even validating like, hey, I love when you send me that, or oh, that was really like helpful. Just those little inside jokes and those little rituals really do matter so much. And then being invested in their interests. My son wants to be a pilot someday. I know more about aviation than I probably ever knew before now. But it matters to him, and I want to take a vested interest in what he is interested in because when we enter their world, man, it opens up the conversation and it opens up the conversation to more than just their interests. So hopefully that encourages you. Again, little text encouragements, gentle touch points, a hug or a hand on the shoulder, offering to pray for them, casually thanking them for doing things. So often with teens, we can pick at them. We can, and my friend Crystal always says, choose your battles wisely. And if it, what is it really, does this really matter in the long run? Like just picking what you're going to pick apart about them and then, making sure you're their biggest cheerleader as well. And never underestimate like a good family inside joke or having a family text message. We have a family text message and it sometimes is poppin' and sometimes it's not, but it's super fun just to have that. Okay, number 7. What do you think you'll do next after the book? What is your next dream? And I really loved this question. But I also want to push back on it a little bit because I think in our culture, and for me for so many years, I was like, what's next? I got married. Well, before I got married, I graduated high school. What's next? I go to college. What's next? I got married. What's next? I had children, right? Like there's always this what's next. And I kind of had this little bit of like an existential crisis when we had like our last child because I was like, well, that's everything, right? Like, what's next? I guess we just live, right? And there is always a what's next, and there always could be. But I'm sort of starting to live in this season of like, let's just enjoy what is now. And I'm still very much in the book launch phase, right? We're getting closer to pre-orders. But just sitting in it, in this dream realized and being like, wow, I wrote a book and it's going to be in readers' hands soon. And just being really content in the here and the now. Um, I don't know. I don't have a big next dream. My goal remains the same to help you simplify your life on purpose, one tiny tweak at a time. No overhaul required. I mean, my big dream is to continue to just serve you all, serve your friends, those that you tell as our ripple grows. But yeah, just sitting really in the here and the now and being grateful, I think is really important to me right now. So that doesn't really answer your question. Maybe, I don't know. I don't have a big next dream. I'm just really grateful to be able to do what I do, and love my family and have the flexibility to do both. Okay, last question for today. How did you bring your shop to life? I have dreams of designing agendas and tools for productivity, but don't have a clue about manufacturing or how that would even come to life. Would love to hear that part of your story. Okay, so as you know, we have a product line. Our products came out of a need. Uh, the tiny tweaks that I had, these tools that I created to kind of help with that. So I feel like I kind of came at this in a different angle. I didn't start this brand to and these products to they really kind of came out of the work that I was doing. But I would say somebody a long time ago, I had these ideas and I had that same thought, like I don't know what I'm doing. I know less than, and we didn't even have Chat GPT or AI to ask these questions back then. But somebody said, look around and see if you can find a design student at the local university and ask them to help you design it in Adobe. And wouldn't you know it, this is just the craziest story, but I went to Vacation Bible School. I was a leader. And I moved every 2 years growing up. That was somebody's question, by the way. Why did you move every 2 years? My dad's work took us all over the world. He worked for corporate America, corporate international, because he took us all. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But I have a heart for new people, new kids, right? Because I was always the new kid. So whenever I see a new kid, I kind of just, or a new person, I try to like go out of my way to introduce myself and make them feel welcome because I always appreciated when people did that for me. Okay, so back to the story at hand. I was sitting at Vacation Bible School as the teacher of my little group, and my assistant was a brand new kid to our church. Her dad had just become the worship pastor at our church. And I just had a heart for her because I was like, gosh, I remember what it's like being new in middle school, right? It's hard enough being in the middle school and then being new, it just stinks. And so I got to talking to her and connecting with her and learning more about her. And she was like, oh, yeah, my sister is a design student at the University of Iowa. And I was like, she's what? And so I was like, could you introduce? So she introduced me to her. And I said, hey, I know you're new to the area. Do you have anything going on this summer? Because I would love to hire you to help me with this project. And she was like, sure. So her and her sister came over to my house and we designed the meal planner with sketches on my dining room table. And she took that and put it in Adobe and helped me develop the first design. And then from there, I called local print shops. And I will tell you, some people never called me back. Some people didn't take me seriously. I found one person who would print on demand. I was like, can you print one? And it was more of like a retail print shop in the beginning. Can you print one and see what it looks like? And then I can take pictures, put it online to pre-order. And then anytime I get an order, you could print on demand. And she said, I think maybe I ordered like 10 at a time or something like that. And she said she'd do that. So I would say if you have a dream in your heart, to ask around and see who you have in your network. You might be surprised who you go to church with, who you work with, who your spouse works with, who you sit with on the sidelines of a basketball game. There's probably somebody with design experience that can help you, even in Canva or something, sketch out something, make something that you can turn into a PDF and then take to a local print shop. And just know that don't take no for an answer. I think I heard other people's entrepreneurial stories. I love to listen to how I built this. It's a podcast about entrepreneurs, but so many people get told no all the time. And it's just choosing to keep figuring out what is the answer? Like, what is the door that will open? How can I get this to work? And just being scrappy and knowing you don't have to have all the answers and that you'll learn on the go, I think is really important. And I just remember so we started with pre-orders because it was an all cash company we were adopting at the time. So I couldn't take out any debt. We still don't take out any debt as a company. I always pay cash for my inventory. And it's really important to me. But I remember the first time I think I ordered 100 and I nearly vomited. I was like, oh my goodness, so much money. Because when you order smaller amounts, right, the margin isn't as great. It costs more to print less, which is just, it is, if a printer is going to print, if they're going to print 1,000, they'd rather print 2,000 or 5,000 and they'll make it worth your while to print that. But um, I remember going from like ordering 10 to ordering 100 to ordering 500 to ordering 1,000. And just this last week, we ordered our largest order of notepads and meal planners ever to date. And every single time I level up, I want to vomit. But every single time I remember the last step, right? Like, okay, we survived. And so I would just say, step out, try it. If you have a dream in your heart, to go after it, because there is room in the marketplace for what you have to share, and you have a unique lens and a unique angle that only you can offer to the world. So don't let your lack of expertise set you back. I've learned a lot over the years. I remember just having a conversation with my business coach a couple of weeks ago, and I said, gosh, I really wish I had gone to business school. And she said, everything that you have learned through the process of owning your own business is so valuable. Don't discount that. And I think that's really important too. We learned so much in the process. And never underestimate the power of like asking other people, asking ChatGPT, asking Google, watching YouTube videos. You'd be surprised how much you can learn along the way. Okay, I hope that encourages you. Again, another session of Ask Me Anything, from everything from organization to how to find your therapist to how to talk to your kids to hard things. I love tiny tweaking our way through life together. And if you like this episode, you love Simple Purposeful Living, would you share it with a friend? We grow the most through word of mouth recommendations. And I would love more people to know that they can tweak their way to a life they love, no overhaul required. So thank you for spreading the word, spreading the message, being a part of our community. I am so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that I get to serve you. And my question to you every single week is, if something feels complicated or clunky, ask yourself, what is a tiny tweak I can make? Experiment, try it, iterate, and keep tweaking your way to a life you love. It's closer than you think. All right, friends, see you next week. If you liked this episode, it would mean so much if you'd share it with a friend or leave a quick rating and review so others can find our show. Until next time, you can find me at Simple Purposeful Living on Instagram and Facebook.